Hello and welcome to This Week in Agriculture, a presentation of the Communications Unit, Ministry of Agriculture. I'm your producer and host, Christopher Holder. On this week's presentation, we bring you highlights of Agriculture Minister Mustafa's activities over this past week. We see that he was the keynote speaker at a transformative training session for extension staff of the Ministry of Agriculture. He signed an MOU with a company to begin the production of millet in Guyana, or minica, as it were. It's a grain that people use in certain parts of Africa. And this grain could be the next big crop here in Guyana. So this is an important development. We'll hear about that in this week's edition of This Week in Agriculture. All other highlights of Minister Mustafa's activities this past week as he sought to advance the interest of agriculture and of farmers across the country on this week's edition of This Week in Agriculture. We will be back after these messages.
The Ministry of Agriculture is advising farmers and others in possession of leases for state lands that under the laws governing leasing of state lands, no person who leases land from government is allowed to sublet those lands to a third party unless written permission is sought and given to the leasee for this to take place. Agriculture Minister Zulfikar Mustafa has noted that this is happening in the MMA scheme, with overseas-based holders of land leases charging farmers who rent from them as much as $30,000 an acre, and by extension driving up the cost of production. The Ministry of Agriculture is therefore requesting all farmers interested in accessing lands to do so through the MMA ADA and pay just $3,600 per acre for both land rental and DNI rates. In the meantime, the board of the MMA ADA is now doing an audit of lands leased to overseas-based persons with a view to reassigning those lands if the owners are found to be exploiting small farmers of Region 5. Through the 2023 budget allocations to the MMA, it is anticipated that approximately 20,000 acres of lands will become available to farmers by the second half of this year. A message from the Ministry of Agriculture. Guyana's rice industry is facing enormous challenges. Increasing input costs has placed a strain on the pockets of the nation's farmers, chief among which is the cost of fertilizer. Coupled with rising cost of inputs, rice farmers are now faced with the impacts of climate change in Guyana's weather. Unprecedented rainfall has resulted in flooding of rice lands, dams become impassable, and opportunity time for land preparation has become a race against time. Between 2015 to 2020, farmers were told rice was private business by the government of the day, left to sink or swim in the face of growing challenges. Since retaking the reins of government in August of 2021, the PPPC government immediately went to work to bring relief to the nation's farmers, especially rice farmers. Through its emergency budget, the PPPC government spent $118 million on the construction of drying floors in regions 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. The sum also covered the value-added lab at the Burma Research Station, rehabilitation of the soil sample lab, and the purchase of 5 Canon Jacto sprayers for the industry. In response to the cries for help by rice farmers who were all but wiped out by the floods of 2021, government provided $1.8 billion in flood relief to all categories of farmers. And for those farmers that were able to sow for the first crop of 2022, government made available to them $1 billion through a reduction in the commission paid to GRDB by millers for every ton of rice exported, thereby allowing the millers to pass this on to the farmers in the price they got per bag of paddy sold to the millers. Over the past 2 years, rice farmers have also been supported through the provision of $255 million in seed paddy assistance, $1 billion Guyana dollars in fertilizer assistance. More than $200 million was spent in 2022 on a number of facilities utilized by rice farmers. These included the upgrades of the drying facilities at Blackbush Polder, on the Quarantine, Burma, and at MMA. the GRDB is now better equipped with modern equipment to advance its research capabilities. This includes the acquisition of 2 drones and the digitization of all rice lands across the country at a total cost of just under $20 million. Just recently, in responding to the concerns of rice farmers now harvesting the first crop this year, government was able to negotiate a price of no less than $4,000 a bag of A grade from millers after removing the remaining commission payable to the GRDB by millers, a value of just under $500 million Guyana dollars going towards the farmers. Agriculture Minister Zulfikar Mustafa is assuring farmers that the PPPC government remains committed to the local rice industry and has allocated the necessary resources to support the sector during the ongoing difficulties. A message from the Ministry of Agriculture. A far-reaching and transformative program to reform and upgrade the extension arm of the Ministry of Agriculture was launched this past week in Georgetown, in the first of several training programs to be rolled out across the country for the rest of this year. Some 250 extension staff drawn from several regions participated in this inaugural training session, which was held at the Police Officers Training Center on Camp Street, Georgetown. During the opening ceremony for the one-day event, Agriculture Minister Zulfikar Mustafa said that extension officers provide that invaluable link between the farmer and government and must always be under constant evaluation to ensure that the relationship is one that is working. Since taking the reins of the Ministry of Agriculture, the Agriculture Minister has been working to reform the extension services of his ministry with a view to ensuring that it is more responsive to the needs of the nation's farmers, that the extension staff are trained in order to be more equipped to help them. According to Minister Mustafa, the training exercise marks the start of a major transformative shift for the extension arm of his ministry, one that will see the service brought directly under the Ministry of Agriculture and not fragmented under various agencies of the ministry.
2.5 years since I became Minister of Agriculture, I have been saying this almost at every forum, every meetings of heads, that we have to reorganize the extension services that we are offering to the Guyanese farmers. Because gone are the days when we do things in a routine way. Gone are the days when we do things just to do it. Or we think that we are in a job just to go and look at a farm and leave it. We now have to be more aggressive, we have to be more responsive, we have to be more reorganized, and we have to be more result-oriented. Those are the things that we have to achieve as extension officers. We have to encourage the establishment of modern farms, increase use of technology. We heard Mr. Garner talk about it, and more efficient farm practices. Gone are the days when we have farmers used to go in an open land, just throw the seed or plant a plant and leave it at that. We are seeing things like climate change today are real. When we were young, we used to have 5 inches of rainfall in a month. Today we are having 5 inches of rainfall in an hour. How we will deal with it? We have to prepare for those things, and you as extension officers, you will have to advise the farmers in terms of best practices, how they have to adapt, how they have to use technology. And those are the things we are encouraging from the Ministry of Agriculture.
Minister Mustafa pointed to the massive investments in infrastructural development in all agricultural areas across the country, ensuring that the vitally needed drainage and irrigation facilities are upgraded and maintained, new farm-to-market roads, new laboratory facilities, etc., all aimed at facilitating the efforts of the nation's farmers.
Over the last few years, we have seen a number of new infrastructural development in the agricultural sector. Roads, farm-to-market roads, drainage and irrigation services, new labs, processing facilities, all those things we have invested in so that we can make agriculture more productive. And last but not least, the most important one for me is strengthening support services, extension, weather forecasting, finance, upskill, human resource, etc. And in all those areas, we have been increasing budgetary allocation over the years. And my good friend Dr. Cummins will tell you how much money we have expended in hydromet services so that we can improve forecasting. What we are doing today, what we are planning to do very shortly, we are looking at various areas across the country to put in these better equipment so that we can have proper forecasting, not only around Georgetown and the urban areas, but places like the far deep south in Region 9, Region 1, Region 8, those areas, so that farmers in those areas can have the same kinds of benefit that our farmers and the coastland are having. We are now building agro-processing facilities in areas, far outlying areas, places like Arnaputa, St. Ignatius, Watuka, those are areas. Why we are doing these things? Because we are preparing the country so that we can increase not only primary production, but add value to the farmers' produce. Those are things that we are looking at. And you know, originally, the CARICOM agri-food strategy is being implemented to ensure that we have a food secure region. Guyana, as I say, is playing a leading role in this regard. Several of our agriculture initiatives are geared towards contributing to reducing the region's food import bill by 25% by 2025. Guyana has the potential to emerge as a lead exporter in both fresh and processed agricultural products. As such, projects are being invested in that will improve transportation and logistics, as well as our food standards and traceability. You know for a fact that not so long ago, a few weeks ago, His Excellency would have commissioned a ship that will ply the Georgetown Region 1 route. And he made mention, it will take that ship 13 hours from Georgetown to Region 1. But it will take the same ship 8 hours from Region 1 to Trinidad. So that's the connection we have to make. And if we are talking about it, right now we want to make Region 1 the spice region of our country, so that we can export all the spices to places like Trinidad and other Eastern Caribbean countries. That's the kind of linkages that we are working on. And the food standard and traceability, we are working on those legislation now. ICA, FAO are helping us to craft those legislation so that we can be prepared. Very shortly, the food safety bill that we have been passed earlier, we'll take it back to Parliament to amend the act so that we can have that into effect too. We are now building the food safety lab. So all these initiatives are geared towards increased production and for Guyana to be food secure and to help in reducing the food import.
The Agriculture Minister explained that it is against this background that the need is now critical to ensure that the extension service of the ministry is being prepared for the ever-increasing role in their interaction with farmers.
Of the policy direction, it is necessary that the agricultural extension system be restructured to accommodate the expansion of agricultural production. The agriculture sector in Guyana remains a critical player in the country's economic growth and development. In 2022, the sector accounted for 24.8% of the country's non-oil GDP, a true testament to the sector's resilience and importance. The rice-growing sector expanded by 8.1%. The other crop sector expanded by 15.3%. The production of pork, poultry, meat, mutton, and beef grew by 15.8%, 12% and 10.1% and 1.8% respectively. Since taking office, our government has committed to achieving explosive growth in agriculture and leverage Guyana's full potential in all sectors of the economy. For continued growth in the agriculture sector, we need a robust and coordinated extension and advisory services system that is accessible to all farmers and rural families. This system should be equipped with the latest technologies and knowledge to ensure that farmers are aware of the best practices and methods to enhance their productivity and profitability. There should be a focus on educating farmers and rural families and the importance of adopting sustainable agricultural practices and most cost-effective techniques. Most importantly, however, we need to create a regional leader in agriculture who will drive innovation, efficiency, and productivity in the sector. Our new system that we want to put in place must be responsive and farmer-centered. Again, I want to repeat, responsive and farmer-centered. Sometimes when we are extension officers and we go to farmers, they ask questions, we might sometimes be annoyed. When officials visit certain communities and farmers make complaint, extension officers seems to be annoyed. We must be more friendly. We must be more open. If we want to achieve the policy and objective of the Ministry of Agriculture and by extension the government of Guyana, all lies in your hands. You are the eye and ears. You are the first link to the farmers, between the farmers and the Ministry of Agriculture. It must have accountability. We heard the word accountability used. You must be held answerable for achieving your work plan and serving your district. In all we do, there must be efficiency to deliver services and support to farmers in a cost-effective manner. The new system, the new extension system, is a central or single agency mindset. So the collaboration and partnership amongst agencies within the Ministry of Agriculture is necessary, with the regional agricultural program and other government and community bodies are necessary. And finally, to create an impact and change we want to see, we need to have reliable and effective links between the Ministry of Agriculture and private players like our farmers, millers, vendors, and agro-processors. As such, we need our extension officers to be more positive, more proactive, extending their reach and services into every village, region, and eventually to every single known farmer in Guyana. Today, it is not that we currently do not have a functional extension system, but rather we recognize that the current structure that we have, and I have said I have been making that point, need improvement. We need to reorganize it in a more responsive way. We need to ensure that we have a system that is working. That is why the ministry is placing great emphasis on strengthening our extension system. In fact, we have already begun to take steps to reform what we already have in place. Since my last meeting with the regional extension coordinators, we have put forward a regional plan for agricultural transformation in each region, which will guide our efforts to support the development of the agriculture sector. Additionally, we have successfully determined the boundaries for 31 extension districts within the 10 regions, ensuring that all agencies within the Ministry of Agriculture will have the same extension district. Moreover, we have established a standardized reporting format for all regions, which will improve our data management and analysis capability. Furthermore, we are committed to ensuring that each region has the necessary leadership and expertise to transform agriculture in their respective areas. We understand that to achieve our objective, extension officers must be well trained, informed, and equipped. Hence, this training here today is critical as it provides the foundation for the work that extension officers will do in their respective region. We will not stop here. After today's session, there will be a regional one-on-one meeting to go through the detail in the coming days and weeks. I know that our development partners understand the importance of an effective agricultural extension system. The Inter-American Development Bank, through the Sustainable Agricultural Development Program, is continuing in a significant way to enhance the extension system Also, our other development partners like ICA, FAO, and CARDI continue to provide the technical assistance to build the capacity of our extension officers and also provide training to farmers.
Earlier, country representative of the Inter-American Institute for Cooperation on Agriculture, ICA, Mr. Wilmot Garnett, urged the extension staff to be ever on the hunt for knowledge, to research, to not be ashamed of not knowing, but also humble enough to find out who knows and seek counsel.
We don't know everything. If you think you know everything, you don't belong in this room. But what we need to know is, if we don't know, try to know who knows and know and engage. And that takes a certain skill set. And that is something that ICA, we talk about a bridge. If we don't know, we can link you with who know. Secondly is targeting the clients. Who are the clients? We heard about women and youth and so on. We need to remember, and the Extension Service need to be clear, that not everybody is at the same level. And so we need to have different strategies as we engage, being mindful that we need to be inclusive. Not everybody can be not everybody is at certain level. Not everybody will benefit from certain inputs and so on. But we need to ensure that in our daily assessment and so on, we build to have everybody advance, and that will help us with the greater impact. So we need to be very clear and put in the different categories who our clients are.
FAO's country representative, Dr. Gillian Smith, in her presentation lauded the training initiative, stressing that extension staff play a critical role in strengthening and advancing agriculture food systems across the board.
You will hear again, and I know that I am preaching to the church here and to the choir, that you are the bedrock of agriculture and the agriculture sector. You already know that you set the foundation for the vibrancy and the competitiveness of agriculture here. You are the ones who link the people, the communities, the rural communities, the farmers, the producers, the agro-processors. You are the ones who help to link them to the markets. You are the ones who help to ensure that they have all of the equipment, the material, the knowledge that they need to be able to create and to improve and to have the livelihoods that they need and the livelihoods that they deserve going forward. You are also doing a lot of other work. We know that you are social workers. We know that you do a lot of training. We know that you work very closely with youth and with women. I say all of this by way again of saying congratulations to you. I say all of this by way of indicating that the framework in which you are working now is changing. It's changing rapidly. It's changing not just in Guyana, but it's changing globally. Extension workers and the work of extension workers and extension practitioners is going to change, and it's going to be just incredible and a lot. As a result of that, there's going to be more demand for your time, more demand for your knowledge, more demand for you as a person and as an institution. Whatever step is taken today as this milestone to begin to change and to find ways to ensure that the extension service is more responsive and is ready for the future that extension will need to be able to address. We thank you for those steps. We want to ensure to you that we are on this journey with you. We are always here for you. Whatever you need, please do not hesitate to come to us. Please don't hesitate to ensure that we are part of your journey.
Extension staff were also given the opportunity of interacting with the Minister of Agriculture through a question and answer session, an item that saw several concerns raised and addressed. Agriculture Minister Zulfikar Mustafa this past week signed a memorandum of understanding with UPL Limited, an India-based company, for the cultivation of millet, a grain crop that can become the next big thing for Guyana. The signing of the MOU paves the way for the company to begin trials in cultivating the crop in the intermediate savannas. The signing of the MOU comes in the wake of a visit to India by Minister Mustafa, during which he participated in a round-table discussion at the Global Millet Conference with his Indian counterpart. Honorable Narendra Singh, and other ministers from across the world to discuss fostering millet production in countries like Guyana to increase food security. Prior to that, His Excellency President Dr. Irfan Ali disclosed during a virtual address at the inauguration of the Global Millet Conference in New Delhi, India, that Guyana will soon commence cultivation trials for production of millet in regions 4, 9, and 10 to support the transition to large-scale production of the seed locally. In his address, the head of state had noted that millet production will help support poverty reduction efforts in the region and that the areas earmarked for the trials represent the profit zone in which similar crops like corn and soya are adaptive and being produced on a large scale. As part of his responsibilities in overseeing the provision of proper drainage and irrigation across the country, Agriculture Minister Mustafa and team toured several parts of East, West, and South Rhinebeck Gardens in Georgetown to assess what is needed to resolve the age-old issue of flooding in the communities. After his inspection of existing drainage structures in those communities, the minister assured residents that a team of engineers from the National Drainage and Irrigation Authority will conduct a comprehensive assessment of what is needed to resolve the issues facing residents, after which a plan of action will be put in motion. Finally, on This Week in Agriculture, in New Amsterdam in Region 6, Agriculture Minister Zulfikar Mustafa commissioned a $45 million water pump, the first of several promised to the town for the alleviation of flooding during the rainy season or during any torrential downpours that occur from time to time. The new pump is located at the back of Tukber and will complement the existing coker there. During brief remarks at the commissioning, the Agriculture Minister said government will soon add a similar pump in the town of New Amsterdam Central to further relieve the issues of flooding. Minister Mustafa was in the town along with President Dr. Irfan Ali and other ministers of government as part of an outreach exercise and the commissioning of a One Guyana Fun Park.
Farmers and the members of the public in general are being advised that tampering with drainage and irrigation structures in any way is prohibited under the Drainage and Irrigation Act. So too are practices that result in damage to access dams, such as using an inadequate length of tube to irrigate farmlands, resulting in erosion of the earthen dams. Also contrary to the Drainage and Irrigation Act is the practice of erecting structures or planting on government reserves. This will not be condoned. These reserves are to be clear at all times to provide access for the excavation of the channels. Livestock farmers should also be aware that they are liable for any damages caused by their cattle or swine to dams or reserves alongside D&I channels, as is the case when the animals cross these channels. Individuals wishing to erect bridges across D&I structures should first contact the NDIA before doing so. Those found guilty under the Act are liable to fines and imprisonment for up to 3 months. A message from the National Drainage and Irrigation Authority, Ministry of Agriculture. Here's an important notice. Do you know that it is illegal to import, store, distribute, sell, and purchase antibiotics without a license or prescription, as the case may be? According to the Antibiotic Act of 1952, owners of livestock and other animals are not permitted to purchase and use antibiotics unless prescribed by a veterinarian. It should be noted that the misuse of antibiotics could result in the development of resistance to the very antibiotic, which in turn will pose health risks to the animal and to humans. The GLDA advises that farmers should not administer antibiotics to animals unless prescribed by a veterinarian. Non-compliance with this act will result in fines and imprisonment. A message from the Guyana Livestock Development Authority, Ministry of Agriculture. Well, that's all the time we have on this week's edition of This Week in Agriculture, a presentation of the Communications Unit, Ministry of Agriculture. I'm your producer and host, Christopher Holder. In whatever constituencies you are, whatever regions you are across the country, local government elections just around the corner, just a matter of weeks now. So by now you would have decided which party you're going to task with running the business of your towns and your municipalities, the city, the NDCs, you want to put people who have your best interests at heart. who have the resources necessary to advance the interest of your community, be it a town, be it a city, be it an NDC or a region. All right? So the red wave is flowing strong, so you want to get on board. Until next time then, I'm Christopher Holder on behalf of the entire production team saying so long. See you around.